Princess Diana, a name that resonates with grace, compassion, and an undeniable allure. She wasn't just a royal, she was the people's princess, admired globally for her warmth, strength, and vulnerability. Behind her fairy tale image, though, was a woman grappling with betrayal, loneliness, and heartache within the gilded cage of royalty. But nothing could have prepared the world for her most daring move, confronting Camilla Parker-Bowles, the woman she believed had taken the love of her husband. This moment wasn't merely a scandal within the royal halls. It was an act of courage, a revelation of heartbreak, and a bold step that would forever redefine Diana's legacy. Join us as we dive into 20 jaw-dropping details of that night, peeling back layers of a story so raw and intense, it echoes to this day. Get ready for a ride, because this isn't just royal gossip, it's a real-life tale of strength, pain, and resilience. 1. The party setting was anything but ordinary. In June 1989, the scene was set at the birthday party of a mutual friend, Lady Annabel Goldsmith, where Diana and Camilla both happened to be present. While it might have seemed like a typical gathering of aristocrats, this event held special significance for Diana. For years, she had carried the heavy burden of suspicion, hurt, and betrayal. She had become adept at hiding her true feelings behind a poised exterior, the elegance that the public knew so well. But this night was different. Diana walked into the party with one purpose: to face the woman who had taken so much from her. This party, once considered a neutral social ground, became a battlefield for Diana's suppressed emotions. Each glance, each whisper in the room held new meaning. Guests may have seen her smiling, mingling as usual, but beneath the grace, Diana was gathering the courage to speak up. This decision wasn't spontaneous. It was a calculated step that marked a shift in Diana's personality and her sense of agency. She was no longer willing to live in silence. 2. Diana's opening line was unforgettable. When Diana approached Camilla, there was no pleasantry or polite banter. Instead, she cut straight to the heart of the matter with a powerful statement: "I know what's going on." This bold opening line was the culmination of years of suffering, heartbreak, and quiet agony. By confronting Camilla in such a direct manner, Diana shattered the invisible barrier she had been forced to maintain within the royal family. In that moment, Diana's vulnerability transformed into strength. It was as if all her pain had condensed into this one sentence, a single powerful line that caught Camilla off guard. For Diana, this confrontation was a breaking point, a chance to reclaim her dignity and demand the respect she felt she had lost. It was a stark, electrifying moment that set the tone for the exchange that would follow. 3. An accusation. Years in the making. As Diana continued, she made no attempt to soften her words. She accused Camilla of being the reason for her unhappy marriage, laying the blame for her misery squarely on the other woman's shoulders. Diana's accusation wasn't just an outburst of frustration. It was the voice of a woman who had been wronged, who had endured endless nights of doubt and isolation. This moment wasn't just about venting her emotions, it was about closure. For years, Diana had felt like a third wheel in her own marriage. She had been silently competing with a bond she could never understand or overcome. Confronting Camilla, saying the words she had longed to say, was Diana's way of confronting the truth. She was no longer willing to be the silent sufferer, and this accusation marked her first step towards liberation. 4. A heartfelt plea that revealed Diana's insecurities. At one point in the confrontation, Diana looked at Camilla and asked, "You've got everything you ever wanted. What more could you want?" These words were more than just a question. They were an admission of Diana's own feelings of inadequacy. Despite her beauty, her status, and her efforts to be the ideal wife and princess, Diana felt like she had always fallen short. Her plea echoed the insecurities that had plagued her throughout her marriage. Diana's words were filled with raw emotion, revealing a side of her that the world rarely saw. Her question conveyed not just her frustration, but her deep sense of loss. She had tried so hard to build a life with Charles, to be the woman he needed, but it was never enough. This simple question was an admission of her own struggles, a heartbreaking realization that she could never fully win her husband's love. 5. Camilla's cold response. A chilling reminder of Diana's loneliness. Camilla's response to Diana's heartfelt plea was as shocking as it was callous. Rather than offering sympathy or understanding, Camilla reportedly said, "You've got 2 beautiful boys. What more do you want?" This response dismissed Diana's pain. reducing her identity to her role as a mother, and ignoring the anguish she felt as a wife and a woman. For Diana, this response was a wake-up call. She realized that the empathy she longed for would never come from Camilla. It was a moment that highlighted the stark emotional divide between them. Diana's loneliness became painfully evident, deepening her feelings of isolation and abandonment. She had come seeking understanding, but instead, she found indifference. 6. Diana's inner strength. Fueled by public support. By 1989, Diana had become a beloved public figure, adored for her warmth, kindness, and humanitarian work. This public admiration had become a source of strength for Diana, giving her the courage to confront Camilla. Knowing she had millions of supporters outside the palace walls gave her a sense of validation and purpose, allowing her to stand up for herself in ways she hadn't before. Diana's connection with the public was unlike anything the royal family had ever seen. Her empathy, her ability to connect with people from all walks of life, became her foundation. This love and admiration from the public bolstered her confidence, empowering her to face her fears head-on. It was this support that allowed Diana to confront her husband's mistress without fear, knowing that she was not alone. 7. Prince Charles's painful silence. Throughout the confrontation, Prince Charles was present, yet he chose to remain silent, allowing Diana to face Camilla on her own. This silence spoke volumes about his loyalties, or rather, his divided loyalties. For Diana, this moment was a confirmation that her husband's love and support could not be counted on. His silence was, in its own way, a betrayal. This moment would become a defining image for the public's perception of Charles. His failure to defend his wife or acknowledge her pain only deepened the sympathy people felt for Diana. The silence of her husband in such a crucial moment of vulnerability reinforced her sense of isolation, showing her that she was truly alone in this battle. 8. Diana's emotional confession, revealing the depth of her struggle. In one of the most poignant moments of the confrontation, Diana opened up about the emotional toll the affair had taken on her. She spoke of sleepless nights, the intense loneliness, and the constant self-doubt that had plagued her since discovering her husband's infidelity. This confession was more than just an expression of anger. It was a release of years of pent-up sorrow and pain. By speaking so openly about her suffering, Diana showed a side of herself that the world had rarely seen. She wasn't just a princess in that moment. She was a woman, vulnerable and hurting, struggling to make sense of her life. This confession was her way of taking control of her narrative, of refusing to be silenced any longer. 9. The night that marked a turning point. After this confrontation, Diana felt an undeniable shift within herself. While it didn't change her circumstances, it gave her a newfound sense of empowerment. For the first time, she had faced her fears head-on, addressing the woman she believed had taken her happiness. This moment was a stepping stone in Diana's journey towards self-empowerment and independence. Diana began to see herself not as a princess bound by duty, but as an individual who deserved respect and happiness. This moment of confrontation was a liberating experience, one that would guide her in the years to come as she forged her own path. 10. Diana's stand for self-respect. In one of the most powerful moments of the confrontation, Diana made a statement that encapsulated her determination to no longer be deceived. "Don't treat me like an idiot," she said, a bold declaration of self-worth and defiance. After years of enduring lies and half-truths, Diana was no longer willing to be dismissed or belittled. This statement was a turning point, a declaration that Diana would no longer accept deceit. She had spent years trying to make her marriage work, sacrificing her own happiness in the process. But in that moment, she took back her dignity, refusing to be patronized any longer. It was a defining moment, one that showed the world that Diana was ready to stand up for herself. 11. Camilla's unruffled calmness infuriated Diana. Throughout the exchange, Camilla maintained a calm, almost indifferent demeanor, which only served to heighten Diana's frustration. This composure felt like a lack of empathy, a refusal to acknowledge the deep pain Diana was experiencing. For Diana, Camilla's calmness was an insult, a reminder of the emotional divide that separated them. In this moment, Diana realized just how different they were. While she wore her heart on her sleeve, Camilla remained detached and unbothered. This calmness felt like a wall between them, a barrier that would never allow Diana the closure she so desperately sought. 12. The affair, an open secret in royal circles. One of the hardest truths Diana had to come to terms with was that Charles's affair with Camilla was not a secret within royal circles. Many people in the aristocracy and royal staff knew, yet no one intervened or offered Diana support. For years, she was left to silently endure the whispers and the humiliation of being the only one seemingly kept in the dark. The silence surrounding the affair created a painful environment for Diana, deepening her isolation and resentment. It highlighted the unspoken rules within the royal institution, where reputation and discretion were valued above individual well-being. To Diana, this silence felt like complicity, an unspoken endorsement of Charles and Camilla's relationship. This realization left her feeling betrayed not only by her husband, but by an entire system that seemed to disregard her emotional suffering. 13. Diana's vulnerability, a moment of heartfelt confession. In one of the most emotional exchanges, Diana admitted that she felt like a failure as both a wife and as the future queen. Despite her devotion to the role, the affair made her feel inadequate, as though she wasn't enough for her husband or the institution she represented. This confession was deeply vulnerable, revealing her own insecurities and the toll the affair had taken on her self-esteem. This moment of honesty was a rare glimpse into Diana's heart. It revealed a woman who, despite her public confidence, felt deeply flawed and unworthy. Her candid admission highlighted her humanity, showing that, behind the royal titles and public appearances, she was struggling with the same doubts and heartbreak that many people face. 14. Charles's continued loyalty to Camilla. Even after the intense confrontation, Charles continued to defend and support Camilla, standing by her side despite Diana's heartbreak. This unwavering loyalty to Camilla added to Diana's pain, making it clear that she was competing against a bond she could never break. For Diana, this was yet another reminder that her marriage to Charles was fundamentally different from what she had hoped it would be. Charles's support for Camilla, even after seeing the depth of Diana's pain, became a symbol of the marriage's failure in the eyes of the public. To many, this loyalty represented a betrayal of Diana's love and devotion. It was a heartbreaking realization for Diana, who had once believed in the fairy tale image of royal marriage, only to be faced with a harsh reality. 15. Public outrage and sympathy for Diana. When news of the confrontation eventually reached the public, Diana's supporters were outraged. The thought of their beloved princess having to confront her husband's mistress on her own, without support from her husband or the royal family, struck a chord with people worldwide. Diana was seen as a victim of betrayal and emotional abandonment, a figure who had shown extraordinary courage despite her suffering. The public's outrage added fuel to the fire, further solidifying the growing resentment toward Charles and Camilla. People rallied around Diana, offering her their support and sympathy, and her image as the people's princess only grew stronger. This public outpouring of love became a source of strength for Diana, reminding her that she wasn't alone, even if the royal institution had failed her. 16. Camilla's lack of remorse and indifference. Throughout the confrontation, Camilla reportedly showed little to no remorse. Her lack of empathy left a lasting impact on Diana, who had opened up about her pain in the hope of finding some semblance of understanding. Camilla's indifference was a painful reminder to Diana that her feelings were not respected or valued in this complex love triangle. This lack of remorse from Camilla added fuel to the public's negative perception of her. To those who sympathized with Diana, Camilla's attitude seemed callous and unfeeling, reinforcing her image as the other woman who had torn apart a marriage. Diana, in contrast, was seen as a symbol of vulnerability and resilience, a woman who had been wronged yet still found the strength to confront her adversary. 17. Exposing the cracks in the royal marriage. The confrontation didn't just confirm Diana's suspicions, it exposed the deep fractures in her marriage to Charles. For years, she had clung to the hope that their marriage could work, that somehow they could find a way to be happy together. But that night, Diana faced the painful truth. The trust and love she had once hoped for were irreparably broken. This moment marked the end of any illusions Diana had about her marriage. She realized that the fairy tale life she had dreamed of was, in fact, a facade. This realization, while devastating, was also a turning point. It allowed her to let go of her attachment to the marriage and to start focusing on her own happiness and well-being. 18. Feeling trapped in a system that ignored her pain. After the confrontation, Diana's sense of entrapment within the royal institution intensified. She realized that the very system she was part of had little regard for her emotional well-being. Rather than offering her support, the institution prioritized the image of the monarchy, leaving Diana to suffer in silence. This realization painted a tragic picture of Diana's life within the royal family. She felt trapped in a world that valued appearances over authenticity, where her pain was something to be hidden rather than addressed. This sense of entrapment only fueled her desire for independence, setting the stage for her eventual separation from Charles and her journey towards personal freedom. 19. The pain of having private moments leaked to the public. Despite the private nature of the confrontation, details of the exchange eventually leaked to the public, likely from someone within royal circles. The leak was a painful reminder to Diana that her most intimate moments were not safe from public scrutiny. This breach of privacy deepened her sense of betrayal, making her realize how little control she had over her own story. For Diana, this leak was an invasion of her privacy that added another layer of hurt. Her life was already under the microscope, but the fact that such a deeply personal and painful moment had become fodder for public consumption felt like a violation. This lack of confidentiality within the royal family only strengthened her resolve to find a way to control her own narrative. 20. Redefining Diana's legacy through courage and resilience. The confrontation with Camilla was not just a moment of personal struggle for Diana. It became a defining chapter in her legacy. This encounter marked her transformation from a passive figure within the monarchy to an empowered woman who was willing to speak her truth. Diana's courage to confront the woman she believed had taken so much from her was a powerful moment of self-assertion. This moment became symbolic of Diana's journey from silent suffering to empowered resilience. It showed the world that she was not just a princess, but a complex individual with her own struggles, strengths, and vulnerabilities. The confrontation with Camilla became a cornerstone of her legacy, solidifying her status as a woman who refused to be silenced and inspired millions to find their own voice. The confrontation between Diana and Camilla was more than just a scandalous chapter in royal history. It was a turning point in Diana's life, a moment that set her on a path towards self-discovery, independence, and resilience. Through her courage and vulnerability, Diana redefined what it meant to be a princess and became a beacon of hope for millions around the world. Her journey didn't end with this confrontation. It was only the beginning. The strength she showed that night would echo throughout the rest of her life, leading her to become an advocate for the vulnerable, a voice for those who felt unseen. Diana's legacy endures not only because of her royal title, but because of her humanity, her willingness to confront her fears, and her unwavering resilience. If this story of strength and courage moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we continue to uncover the powerful stories of the world's most iconic figures. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest strength comes from facing our deepest struggles.